we'll kick off everyone. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for coming. So we'll start the meeting. So my name's Kim, I'm the chair, and Councillor Tommy Gray is the vice chair. I think everybody knows the process, but if you want to speak, put your hand up, or if you're on, we got anybody online?
Yes, Chair, there's a few.
If we've got people online, if you want to speak, just put your virtual hand up and then we'll come to you in due course after either the questions from the parish or town councils or from the presentation from the police. So we'll start. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, we've had apologies from Councillor Aaron Beaver, sorry, I can't get my words out, and County Councillor Adi Riggards.
Any other apologies? No, that's it, fab. Minutes of the last meeting, pages 3 to 6. Any comments? Or we take those as noted. I think it was Ruth had just suggested that I mentioned that the consultation events for the local plan are ongoing at the moment. So if anybody's not sure, they are on the website, or just contact Coral. Coral's supporting the meeting tonight, aren't you? Or Ruth, and they'll be able to direct you as to how to respond to the local plan. So then we'll go on to item 3. This was something that was requested a number of meetings ago. So we've got Chief Inspector James Neal. We've got a great turnout. We don't normally get this many people. So Chief Inspector Neal's local policing and partnerships, and it's going to give us an update on policing with Chorley. And then we'll come to some of the questions that have already been submitted, where written responses have already been responded to, so that we shouldn't need much discussion on that. And then we'll have a bit of time if there's anything additional that people want to raise. And Coral will make a note of, because I imagine it'll be like hyper-local stuff that you might not know off the top of your head, and then we'll get replies back to people as and when, if that's okay. So over to you. Thanks.
I'll try and get that working. Can everybody hear me? Right, brilliant. I've got a little presentation. I'll go through it. I'm not sure how some of the tables will show up on the screens, but we can pick that up as we go through. So I thought I'd just start with a quick introduction. My name's James Neal. I'm Chief Inspector covering this area. On the screen is a brief overview of the team who are working in this area. So under sort of my portfolio, I've got the Safer Neighbourhoods team that covers all of this side. So I've got the Integrated Offender Management, I've got licensing, and the Safer Neighbourhoods team. So they work across all the areas. The middle section is for West Lancashire, so we won't worry about that tonight. And on the right is your team that will cover yourself. So you've got Inspector John Scott, who sits over South Ribble and Chorley. Under him in Chorley, he's got 2 sergeants at the moment. He's got Anna-Marie Canavan, Sergeant Anna-Marie Canavan, and Sergeant George Johnson, who both work here in Chorley, and a task force sergeant who covers both Chorley and South Ribble. So there's quite a few people who were able to pull into the area to deal with issues as they come along. Like I say, possibly this is a bit small text crime-wise, but I'll pick some stuff out, and if there's any particular areas that anybody's interested in, I can talk through them. So generally, in terms of crime overall, mostly it's a good picture. We have seen reductions in things like arson and criminal damage over the last year. All crime, violent crimes down, thefts down, public order offences are down. The concerning ones that I'm sure people will pick up, burglary is showing an increase. We know, especially in Chorley, whilst that is residential burglary, a lot of them relate to the new build houses, which classify as residential but don't actually have people living in them. So they've been quite heavily targeted for things like boilers, doors, windows in one case, the copper piping and things like that. So whilst there is an increase in burglary, and it does relate to residential burglary, they're less of an increase in terms of the places where people are living. We have a burglary task force in the division overseen by our CID department, so all burglaries get looked at. In terms of our neighbourhood response, if a residential address is burgled, it will get both the initial response from immediate response. It will then get a visit from my neighbourhood team, who will go speak to the occupier, but then we'll be visiting the houses nearby to make them aware, give any crime prevention advice, look for CCTV, and then you should also, if people are signed up to In the Know, get a message in that area just to let everybody know. Because the concern we have, and it's based on statistics, is that if one address is burgled, then nearby houses are also likely to be targeted if people have scoped it out on the way through. So as a way of target hardening and preventing further victims, we've got that in place at the moment. Drugs offences, I'm going to couch that in a more positive way, because drug offences are only crimed when we've got hold of the drugs and tested them and confirmed they are. So although there's an increase, it relates to an increase in the number of seizures we've had, increased stop searches. So I think that's positive. It's probably not necessarily indicative of more drugs in the area, but certainly more have been recovered. Possession of weapons is showing an increase, but it's quite small numbers. It's an increase of 14 over the period last year. But again, violent offences are down. So I think that more relates to, the stop searches that we're finding related to drugs rather than us being called to more knife crimes. I'll move on. That's not good. Right, I'll not push my space bar again. I'll do it this way because it seems to turn my mic on. ASB. So it's overall, it's a really good picture. We're down 16%. Obviously, we've had Operation Centurion, which is additional funding for additional police hours, especially in Chorley centre, which has had a big impact. But you will see on there, there's a number of red areas that have had increases. The main ones, certainly in terms of raw volume, I think we're probably already aware of in terms of sort of around the Clayton area, Buckshaw Village, those sorts of things that we're aware of. If anybody does want to talk specifically about those, we'll probably do those outside the meeting, but it's a little bit of a mix. But I think essentially we have quite a flexible workforce, so if there are issues in an area, we can flex to wherever they are. That is also a April to December picture. So whilst there's I think the highest there is 38 increased incidents over that month-long period, that's actually quite small numbers if you spread them out. I wanted to talk a little bit about Lancashire Talking. I don't know if everybody's aware of it, but it's the main tool that we as a force use to listen to what affecting communities. Outside, obviously, people ring in, we listen to that. If we go to any of the meetings, if we get anything fed back here, obviously that gets fed back in. But Lancashire Talking is a system where people sign up, they can fill out a survey, and they basically identify what issues are affecting in their area, and they should also get an update back in terms of, if you told us about ASB nuisance in your area, you should get an email back at some point telling you what we've done about it. So hopefully it's quite two-way. This graph shows, this is for the whole of Chorley, and of course different areas have different issues. So most people report having no issues, which is obviously really positive and where we want to be at. Dog fouling is always a major annoyance. We don't deal with that. This is aimed as a multi-agency partnership approach. So if it's something we're aware of, we pass on that information and they will get a message saying we've passed it on. But we won't deal with that. Parking issues is the next highest, which again is frustration. A lot of those linked to schools. ASB nuisance obviously is understandable. Road safety is really big, and I'll talk a little bit about speeding concerns and one of the questions we've had today. And then drug dealing and e-bikes are priorities across all areas, I think. So I just thought I'd mention that. That guides very much what we do. The more people who are signed up to it and the more people who fill in the surveys, the more evidence we've got about where we need to put our resources. So if people are wanting a way of feeding in without emailing in or whatever, that is probably the best way. So we look at this regularly and it goes straight to the neighbourhood teams. I don't know if you want me to, how much detail you want me to go into, but I know you're representing your areas, so I thought I'd just put up some of the areas that have complained about specific issues and where they're hitting. So the main parking issues are probably no surprise, sort of the more built up areas, but it does impact some of the smaller areas as well. I shouldn't push this. That's ASB, again, Buckshaw Village, which is very current at the moment. I know we've got some projects ongoing in relation to that, but quite spread out. in terms of where people feel that this is a problem. Road safety's really key, and I know I've already had a question, like I said, around this, and that's really spread out. And I think this affects quite a lot of areas. I will go into speeding. Speeding's slightly different than road safety, and this is where having two systems isn't ideal. So we have the Lancashire Talking, which deals with all the issues, one of which is road safety. So this could be, I think when it was designed, the aim is it something that we can deal with via engineering work? Is it lighting? Is it that type of thing? But we also have this, the Safer Roads Network, which has the online speeding portal, and that's the route where if people are concerned about speeding in their area, that gets collated. The Safer Roads Networks dole out tasking both to our our specialist operations traffic officers, but also to neighbourhood officers to identify where we need to be going. And we do returns to say what we've done in each area. So whilst we have road safety on Lancashire Talking, if it's speeding, the speeding portal is probably the best way, and I've sent through both details for how to sign up and report on those. Drug dealing, again, is quite widespread across the whole area in terms of concerns about it. Nuisance bikes and scooters, it's really topical at the moment. We absolutely hear the frustration that's coming through in relation to these. We've got a couple of operations planned in relation to it. I'll talk a little bit more around it if people want, but yeah, again, I think the diffuse nature on that map shows how widespread the problem is, or the consternation with it. Positively, we also get feedback from people around how happy they are with what we're doing. So this is answering the question of, are we dealing with antisocial behaviour issues in your area? Overall, generally, most people agree. The big concern for me in this area is they don't know, because people should know. They should either know we're not doing it, or we are, essentially. And I think that's down to us in terms of not always updating people about about the things we're doing. So that's a real drive at the moment, to make sure that we are putting those messages back out, both on social media and especially through In the Know, because again, if you've reported something on In the Know, we can send you an email directly back. It's not as if we don't know how to get in touch with people. So that is an issue for us, but actually the number of people who disagree that we're dealing with antisocial behaviour in their areas are really quite small. And when we've contacted them to sort of dig a little bit deeper to find what we're doing wrong, it's usually single issue things in terms of, this is making my life really miserable and it's still going on, so of course I'm not happy, which we entirely understand about, as opposed to the overall approach that we take. This other one is satisfaction for crime issues that matter. Are we dealing with crime issues that impact you? And again, quite strongly flavoured in terms of, yes, still some concerning people who were not dealing with their issues. So again, that gives us a focus. And again, it helps, because if you're on this saying you're not happy with us, then we will look at why and what we can do differently. So it is lifetime. We look at it every day. Well, that was confidence. I don't know if you want to go back, but again, very similar picture. These are just a couple of clippings from the social media account. I thought I'd put some stuff on from the last few months just to demonstrate some of the stuff we're doing and trying to hit. Obviously, off-road bikes, scooters, e-bikes are huge at the moment. Somebody's been taught that if you park them in front of a police car with its lights on and take a picture, it's really good. They are 3 different ones. I thought it was the same, but we are regularly taking bikes off people. There's been quite a lot of drugs seized recently. We did an operation for cannabis farms, which was incredibly effective. Op Vulture focus on shoplifting. We've had a real positive impact on shoplifting recently. Essentially, to deal with that, if shoplifting is reported, if there's an offender on scene, then we'll get a response from the immediate response team. If that offender's left and they're reporting it after the incident, it'll be crimed. The crime will get allocated again to a response officer, but neighbourhood officers will go out, get the CCTV, get the statements, identify the suspects if they can, because again, it should be the neighbourhood teams who recognise people, feed that back for them to be arrested, and we've seen a real positive change in that. And then when we are identifying repeat suspects, we're taking out community behaviour orders and similar on them to prevent the problem carrying on. And the last couple, and I know these are really small, but I thought I'd add them in, is these seizures were done by the dumper truck, and I think one of the vehicles was done by the Rural Task Force, which is also another task force we have, which focuses mainly on, obviously, your rural issues. But the question I sometimes get asked is, do they ever come to this sort of side of the division? And absolutely they do. So I thought I'd include those. Speeding concerns. So this map, I don't know how helpful it is, but I've got a few, and probably don't worry too much about it. And if somebody's got specific questions, again, when I can pick that up outside. But this is the data that we get from the speeding portal. Like I say, I've got a few iterations of this because depending on the dates, depends how readable it is. So essentially we map where the collisions are, where we've been doing enforcement, and where people are telling us that there are concerns around speeding for them. So obviously, ideally, they will all match up. This is obviously quite a large time period, but as you can see, the enforcement's definitely down the motorways is obviously always key, but we do get quite a lot of enforcement activity off those networks. I don't know if the next slide's slightly clearer for... this relates to one of the questions I was asked around Heath Charnock. There is definitely a bit of an issue there, but I thought I'd show you what we're aware of, what we've done with it, and I suppose some of the issues we have in terms of where we put our resources. So and again, the colours aren't ideal, so the collisions we're aware of are these blue dots here. So this period is, this is for the whole of last year. That seems quite a long period, but I don't think that is. I think that's this year. So there's only been 3, 4, 5 on this side of the road that we're aware of that's been reported to us. Although we have the slightly lighter dots are where we have been doing speed enforcement, and those speed enforcements aren't just we've been out, that's where somebody's been dealt with for things. So again, the more indication that we're doing enforcement forms is both that we're there, but also indicative that there's an issue because we're catching people doing the things that we know they shouldn't. So they shouldn't. And the purple ones are the areas that people have put speed concerns for. The one on the right is the Lancashire Talking version of that. So this is where people are saying that there's road safety concerns, which in this case are probably, whilst there's one by the U tree and the mostly in Heath Charnock itself, is where people are mostly concerned rather than outside. But again, it depends who's signed up and who's using the system. This is the full year. So I thought, what I didn't want to do was just show a few months and say, we've no evidence that there's any problems, because obviously when you build up the time period, it becomes a lot more clear of what the pattern is. And it is clear there, certainly around so these series of, I don't know if you can see my cursor here or not, but this series of blue dots is collisions that we're aware of. So there are a considerable number, but also there's quite a few enforcement forms that have been issued over that period. So it is something that absolutely we're aware of and is getting enforcement at the moment. And I thought hopefully that would show it. There aren't that many. What struck me in some ways was there aren't very many concerns. So the purple ones are the concerns that people are reporting. It's not massively necessary because we're aware from the data that there's collisions there, we're enforcing there, and there's, and we're catching people. So you don't have to have speed concerns for us to go there because, like I say, we're already aware. But I just thought I'd point, we do then also have the responsibility, if people are reporting speed concerns, to also listen to them in other areas. So there's a little bit of a push-pull in terms of where the resources go. And you'll probably be able to see from the number of purple dots, there are plenty of other areas also having issues and pulling the resources that way. So whilst, like I say, there's no need to say, or what I'm not saying is because nobody's complained about speeding concerns there, we don't go there, because we clearly do. But just to make you aware of sort of the bigger picture, certainly around Chorley. that was everything. If anybody wants me to go back to a particular slide, or if there's a question that I've not gone anywhere near, I'm happy to field them.
Thank you very much. I think that was really interesting. So we'll go to the questions that have been submitted first, because I know we did put a bit of a plug out for it. So Councillor Russ Green has submitted a couple of questions there. I think your answers are fairly self-explanatory. Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, it was, in fact, we spoke at the last Soul Site and Scrutiny Commission meeting, and
Yes.
so I'm content that I've got the information, or will get the information in due course, so, yeah, thanks very much.
And then we've got a question from Heath Trannock Parish Council.
Hi. You talked a lot about the area we're concerned in, which is Anglesart. You've talked about that Lancashire talking. We've, over the last 2 years, had lots of talk with Chorley, James Walker, the Deputy Crime Commissioner, and Conor Cross has been out there, and also with UU. Now, they've told us all to report to the rural email, which was the partnership. So all our problems have gone through rural, which is probably why you've not heard of any. And the problem with that is that Lancashire Highways is saying that the police are not showing that there's been a lot of activity there. So we've all probably now been going down the wrong channel.
Yeah, which I can understand your frustration. So who's got the database of where that, or where have all the reports gone? Sorry,
I'd
to us in
imagine that's
rural.
James Walker.
There was a mailbox, because there was quite a lot, because obviously it's a rural population. There was quite a lot of feedback about how hard work people find it to report to the general system. So it was an agreement between the local neighbourhood policing team
The police
and the
rural.
public protection team to set up a specific rural chorley.gov.uk inbox. And James was passing that information on to our previous community beat manager, Connor, who did an incredible job and then has gone off.
In the way we do in the police, yes. Right, so
I think Alistair might have some supplementary information to that.
I think the problem... Sorry, Chair. The problem in that area is this isn't local people speeding on local roads, is it? It's young people going up Rivington, driving around like lunatics, probably on all kinds of other stuff as well, of an evening, bringing a problem in. So we've had this discussion before about SPIDs and that, haven't we? Are we trying to affect the local population and make them all slow down, or are we trying to target? And therefore, this is speeding associated with crime as opposed to speeding for speeding's sake. And then, but what that then leading to is, according to UU, and this is at the last parish council meeting when they briefed that there's an increase in burnt-out cars up there, there's an increase in damage and disruption and all the rest of it. So it's a wider issue than just traffic, but traffic is probably the most obvious manifestation of it.
If I could speak again about that, it is a real issue, because what we're finding also, the antisocial behaviour happens at night. Fair enough, there's only really residents that drive around at night other than the antisocial dangerous driving, but they also come out during the day as well. And Rivington and Anglesart are incredibly busy. And you've got these, I'll call them boy racers, but they are all dangerous drivers, absolutely speeding down when you have visitors coming that are walking without footpaths. You have cars parking everywhere because there isn't enough parking facilities. You have all road users out there. You have the horse riders, you have the cyclists, and you have these dangerous drivers during the day. I don't know how or what you can propose to help this situation. You have, as Alistair said, you have speeding and crime, but you also have a heck of a lot of public there.
no, absolutely. Right, let me take it away and I'll come back with some kind of plan, because I think, whilst frustratingly for both of us, I've not got the information that you've already submitted. we've already picked it up by the methods that people weren't doing. So if we know there's a problem and people weren't reporting it, then it's clear that there's a lot going on. So I'll take that away and I'll try and marry those up, because it won't have gone anywhere. It's just not the systems that we normally use.
And
Back
I think
on that point,
and I think just because, and I'm not taking away from this meeting because it's quite a localised issue, is I think the best liaison point is via you and the parish council via their meetings, because the view locally, and you support this, is it needs some kind of physical obstructions and physical preventions, because what you also get in the midst of all that is somebody parking in the middle of a dam, which then blocks it all, and then you have people trying to speed across that dam, for argument's sake. That's a fairly unique situation. And if you go up there the week after Sunday, you can't get through. But then conversely, 6 hours later, people are going through there at 60, 70 mile an hour.
Yeah.
So you've got lots of issues. I think taking it via the parish council would help deal with issues in that specific area. Other areas suffer a bit from it. North Bolton does, the moors around Blackburn do.
Yes.
But in this area, that's quite a unique situation.
No worries.
Thank you. Thank you, that'd be great. Steve's got his hand up next, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, the police are trying to do more with less, as is everybody. And I commend you for your efforts. One of the things that I've noticed, though, over many years, is that you get yourself, well, once upon a time, if you lived in Heapy, you had a bobby for life. But that doesn't seem to happen anymore. And I'm just wondering, the personnel changes quite a lot now. And you get to know somebody and somebody gets to know you and the community that they're serving. And then they get promoted or move to a different division or something like that. I was wondering how big an issue is that in terms of continuity and, you know, having that local knowledge that helps you work out where policing matters are, you know, most pressing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's definitely something we're aware of. So there absolutely is quite a rapid turnover. I know whenever we work, certainly with local authorities, it's commented on how the faces change quite regularly. To address this, certainly in neighbourhood roles, the general sort of stipulation is that if you're applying for example, a CBM post or a CBM sergeant, that you'll give at least 2 years to that post. I can appreciate that actually 2 years probably disappears quite quickly by the time they've got to know the area. But I think in terms of continuity, that's been the agreement we've reached, is that if you're applying for the job, it's not to get some examples for promotion or because it fits. It's because you're going to be there for 2 years. So hopefully there'll be that continuity.
I've got Graham Ashworth next, and then come to this chap. I'll go to Graham first.
Chief Inspector, 2 years ago we had a meeting with Deputy Crime Commissioner Pratt, is it? Andy Pratt. And we met on of an afternoon, it was in May, and we took him on a circular tour of where the barn racers go. And we had a map, and we showed him all the places where they've left the road, gone through the walls, taken fences out, and, well, still not repaired, but that's not the police's fault. But it was about 24 areas in about a 2.5 mile route. And there doesn't seem to be any patrolling on those areas. Now, what I thought might be a good idea, if you're not fully au fait with the area, is to have another meeting and we'll go round again and show you them. Even this last 2 weeks, there's a car come down to Allen's Bridge and gone down the top of the wall and taken quite a, well, knocked it into the road actually. Last week, there was about 20 metres of stone coping stolen from the spillway out of the Amblesart Reservoir, is it? And it's because all these walls are knocked down, and it looks a tatty down at heel place. And it's not really, but they're coming up now and stealing the stone off the top of the walls. Now, it's funny, and all these accidents happen, but in the morning, the cars have gone. And some of the damage must be quite considerable. The only one that was stuck was on Knowlesley Lane, and he went through the wall and he carried on down the embankment and he hit a tree at the bottom and he was stuck in the car. Now, that was 2 years ago and that wall's still down. That's not your problem. But we have these meetings and we all go away feeling happy, oh, well, something's going to be done. But it's not. It's not being done at all. The U-Tree pub, a car went up there about a month ago, didn't it? Hit the wall on the right-hand side, spun across the road, took the wall down on the left-hand side and landed on its roof. I mean, these people are not going at 20 mile an hour. They're going at considerable speed. But nothing seems to... I've never seen... Oh, I have once. I saw one police car about 2 years ago. And there's just not... I know you're short of funds and are probably short of personnel, but it just doesn't seem to be happening at all. I know there is a problem with you can't put humps in because there's no street lights. You can't put pinches in and what have you, again, because there's no street lights. So you're really stuck with a 60 mile an hour road in most cases and no patrolling. And I'm sorry, personally, it's no reflection on yourself. I just don't feel it's good enough at all.
No, I can hear how frustrated you are with it. I mean, what I will say is there is definitely action because we can see from the enforcement forms that are being put in that people are being dealt with there, but clearly it's not enough. So let me go away, let me find that information that's already been sent through, speak to the local officers, and we'll come back with some kind of concrete plan, and then we can deal with it from that point. I think it's probably the best way forwards.
Right, okay, thanks.
Can I just add on that point as well? I think it just comes back to Alison's further point about the handover between the different neighbourhood policing officers, because it's never going to be enough, is it? Whatever happens up there, because you're never going to have a presence 24/7. But there was a hell of a lot of work that went up there, more than I have ever seen in the last 10 years up in Rivington and Anglesey. And that stopped because one person who had the eye on the ball for it has gone, and it's not been passed over to the new people, and we don't even know who the new people are doing. So, but you get the vibe.
Yeah, no, absolutely, no, I do hear that. We do try and do handovers. It very much depends. At the moment, certainly police officer-wise, we're recruiting at an incredible rate because we've got those vacancies. So we're not always crossing over, which is probably one of the issues you've identified there. But
no worries. Thank you. Got this chap from Janet Richard Parish Council. I've forgotten your name, sorry.
That one? Thank you for attending tonight, officer. Much appreciated. We've all missed a point today tonight about insurance. Racing on the highway are not insured. So a lot of these people racing up and down think they're very good people. All you need to do is take the number and listen to the police, because they're not insured. They can race all down all night if they want, but end of the story on your policy, I could bring it next time I come in, hire or reward or racing. Therefore, they're not insured. You can just take them off the road. Easy as that.
I mean, yeah, certainly for organised racing that would be the case. But I mean, essentially, if they're speeding and we deal with them for that, that would probably be the most appropriate ones. I think it is that issue of getting the resources there and capturing them at the right time, isn't it? So I'm comfortable we've got the powers if people are driving at ridiculous speeds in excess of the speed limit, but it's...
Fair enough. I'm saying again, you're not listening. It gives you on your policy what you're going to do with your insurance. I'm in business for 38 years now, and everything's on my policy. But it doesn't give racing high or reward on my policy. So all these people riding about with probably third-party insurance, and the parents paying the insurance, but they don't know where they're going. But I wish they'd come up front of me, and this gang, I can tell you that. They'd be walking home, I'm sure of that.
No, absolutely.
Point taken. Gordon, France.
Thank you, Chair. Just to make a point, on the drugs issue, what myself and I think you'll agree with me, Chair, what we've tended to find is that where you're getting drug issues, it tends to be at the same time, if you can get residents to tell you the time, it makes it much easier for yourselves. I've got to truthfully say, all you probably do is move it to somewhere else, but time is important. I just thought I'd make that comment because that can, it limits, you don't need 24/7 officers. If you got the time, you probably get them.
No, absolutely. No, you're entirely correct, and that is ultimately where we work best at, because like you say, we can have the resources in the right place at the right time and then move them when they're not needed to somewhere else that does. So no, we do. Like I say, I've got, a number of task forces, but Chorley's got one split between itself and South Ribble. So if we are getting that community information, that's essentially the main part of their job is acting on that, so can do.
Yeah, is it Barbara? Yeah. Oh, good.
Sorry. We've done this since we had a question mark over the speeding on North Road, and we were always told there haven't been enough incidents to warrant changes. We got a slight change, but not really what residents were asking for. And so we started to keep a record of all the incidents, but every parish council meeting we add to that record. Often, as the gentleman over there said, the reports come from people in the village. Following morning, the evidence has disappeared. There's just some damage somewhere. Should we be putting that on? Should our parish clerk be putting that on Lancashire Talking?
Is it speeding?
Well,
or
some of it's speed related, some of it's accidents that happen, and they're usually in the middle of the night, so nobody sort of sees very much.
No. So I would say for speeding concerns, yeah, probably through the speeding portal, because that goes to, it's run centrally in the force, so we get force resources coming in to deal with those. If it's ASB, so they're not necessarily going to be speeding, but they're revving the engines or the tyre spinning or driving dangerously, probably Lancashire Talking is. If, I suppose it's difficult for one person. I'm not aware of any sort of local councillors having like a group account where they do it all, but I'm not saying it wouldn't necessarily work. It may be easier to just link in with the neighbourhood officer if they're getting loads of different ones, because whilst that is the sort of the preferred way and it puts it all on a database for us and maps it, it doesn't need to be the only way. So if it's clunky and doesn't work for you,
well, I don't know. I think sometimes we know that things have happened and we're being told that they're not happening.
yes.
And it's really a way of getting those into, the public domain, really, to make sure that something can be done. And the same with the SPID results. We don't have any number plates of cars that are speeding, but we've got statistics, and the guy who looks after the SPID keeps all that data, reports to us. But what do we do with that? Should we be putting that forward?
So the SPID stuff probably just need to go, and then that can come through us directly. But yeah, it needs to come through. We are really data focused and driven with where we put our resources, because they're limited to an extent. So yeah, if you're aware of stuff and and you don't think we are, make sure we are.
Thank you.
No worries.
Any other questions? I'll come back to Russ because you've already. Ian, yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Anderson Parish Council, which is right down in the south of the area. And really, referring back to the speeding concerns, we've also got some major speed concerns. To its credit, Chorley Borough had 3 SPIDs erected around the area. And really, to be honest, all those SPIDs do is just confirm the problem. We have information, they do collect data, but I don't know whether you get to see that automatically. But what I was going to say was that this thing about the police telling us to report everything to the Lancashire Road Safety Partnership, and then the Road Safety Partnership's either saying the criteria isn't high enough to do anything, or it's the police's responsibility. That's really frustrating, and it gives people no confidence in that reporting mechanism. But the solution to it, and we appreciate that you are resource limited, but the solution would be to have speed cameras erected on roads of concern. But for some reason, the county council will point blank refuse to install automated speed cameras.
No, and I suppose us knowing about it is obviously the first step. I do know I've had a similar issue in West Lancashire where, again, we can evidence a certain number of collisions, a certain number of speed incidents, but there is a criteria, certainly for speed cameras, that isn't set by us and is set by the Safer Roads Network, and if it doesn't cross it, we don't get those resources. So you can be right up against that criteria, and you don't get them, which is frustrating. I appreciate, but I know, like I said, I've dealt with a similar situation, and some of those criteria are documented, and they won't go over them if it doesn't hit.
I think the only cameras I've seen in Chorley in the last 10, 15 years have been the ones up through Belmont, Abbey Village, and down towards Croston, and that the average speed, and then those have been as a result of government funding, and a lot of people having some serious injuries, haven't they, and motorcyclists, and some serious accidents over a number of years, yeah.
And
I
this
imagine the criteria is
the criteria is really high, and I entirely get the frustration because we want them there preventatively to say, if you don't put a camera there, somebody's going to die. And then, but the argument the other side is, well, there's no fatalities, so we don't think they need a camera, whereas other areas have fatalities. So I do get that, and like I say, we have had those discussions, but the resourcing criteria is high.
Right, we've got Michelle, then Tim Blackburn online, and then we'll come back to Russ, and then we'll bring it to a close. So Michelle, yeah.
Thanks, Chair. How would we go about getting the speed vans put in? Because I certainly have got major concerns. 2 years ago, there was 3 serious accidents within 9 months in exactly the same spot in my ward. And I would love for the van to be put there, because it did work. Once we had the 3rd collision, I think it was 6 weeks apart from the 2nd one, I did get I've got the banners to put up, I've got the stickers to put on the bins saying, you know, save lives, slow down. But how would we go about getting a speed van to come and do pieces of work? Because I think having a speed van in the area does work, it is a deterrent. And I would love to know how I would go about organising that.
Yeah, so the mobile speed van, again, they work on the data they've got through the speeding concerns area. There are issues that they're not suitable everywhere, but if you've already had them, I'm presuming they've got a suitable site that they can set up from. So again, they work off the data that gets reported generally through the speeding portal. So I would probably say, if you haven't been reporting it that way, probably do. If you're already aware of a lot, we can pick it up sort of outside of the neighbourhood, through the neighbourhood team, and I suppose very similar to yourself with if you've already got issues, rather than say, right, we need to start again, we'll have some discussions, and we see. I can't make any promises, but we do get the speed van if we can argue that there's justification. So
Tim Blackburn online. I don't think we can hear you, Tim. We can't hear you, Tim. If you want to put the question in the chat. But we'll come back, we'll go to Russ, and then we'll come back to Ian might be predicting what Tim's going to raise.
I know the question, I think I know the question Tim's going to raise, and it's about the handheld speed guns, whether they're available to the parish councils for use, and what the procedure is we would go through to get one. Because I think Tim's previously asked the question and never had a response to an answer to it.
That was raised at one of the scrutiny meetings, so it's on my list of questions to find out, because I know at least half of the neighbourhood team are all trained on it, but in terms of externally, I don't know at the moment, so I'll do some digging.
Thanks for that. Russ? Yeah.
Yeah, just wanted to just build on what the point that Gordon was mentioning in terms of about timeliness of reporting. There's a resident of mine works in Merseyside Police, and they've got this staffed social media reporting desk, so people can report via Facebook and that directly to them, and then they can contact the officers in the vicinity in virtually real time. And that resident said that's made a massive difference in terms of being able to react to stuff and catching people, because by the time you come through like an unmanned sort of reporting system, by the time you guys get to come out, quite often the perpetrators are long gone. I just wonder whether there's any thoughts about replicating a similar system within Chorley or even Lancashire, for example.
Yeah, so it is something we've considered. I think the concern we've got is, do we have the facilities to monitor it, and can we give the correct response? So I think at the moment, if it needs an immediate response, it's still to ring the control room, either 999 or 101. We do monitor the Facebook channels. There is a digi-team, but we don't, I think, I wouldn't want to encourage people to report on Facebook, because I couldn't promise that they get the response that it probably deserves. We do pick up stuff. I know on a lot of the social media issues, especially when we do speed enforcement with the speed guns, the comments quite often will have, you should do it on such and such a street, and we do listen to that, but because it's not immediate. But if you need cops to tip up, I would say no, please still ring. We're not going to be in a position to.
Last one from Alistair.
Can I just pick up a point and follow on from that? Because I sit on the police and crime panel for Chorley, we have had reports back lately that 101 is being answered a lot quicker than it used to be. So the 101 wait times, now you can't guarantee that all the time because it has peaks and troughs, so you have sometimes when everybody's ringing 101 and there are other times it's a lot quieter. But generally the response times, and a lot of people, particularly in the town centre and shoplifting and what have you, wouldn't ring 101 because they couldn't get through. It is starting to get better, and therefore try it as an option. And they can triage it, I think, can't they, like you said, whereas on Facebook it's a lot harder to triage what the priority is, because it's not all going to one place, is it? So therefore I think that's a route to try, perhaps more than perhaps people have in the past. It's changed, and I've tried it myself, so it does work.
Good shout, yeah, good suggestion. Fab, no, we really appreciate your time anyway. Thank you for coming in. Thank all your colleagues for everything they do as well, and you're welcome to stay, or you can Thanks. Right, we'll crack on item 4. So we've got an item requested by Charnock Richard Parish Council. I think it's fairly self-explanatory, isn't it? Everybody should have seen it in the agenda pack. I don't think anybody would disagree with it. So I think we were suggesting that we'll invite somebody from Lancashire County Council to come and talk about how they address the highways. Perhaps not. We had the cabinet member that came last year who didn't really go into the detail of things about how they prioritise which roads and what the strategies are and stuff. So perhaps we'll ask for somebody with a bit more technical information as to how they plan which roads they're going to do and which roads they're not do. They have something called a TAMP, a Traffic Asset Management Plan. So that's supposed to be the overarching strategy, which is the basis for how much money they get from the government initially, and how they sort of approach the worst first store prevention and all that. And then they've got other different pots of funding now as well. So I think that's a plan for later in the year. We'll get somebody hopefully from a officer perspective at the county council to come and take questions, and maybe with the cabinet member as well. Are you happy with that? Fab.
Point, and it was in the paper last week, so I'm not saying anything that's not in the newspapers, is that Chorley and South Ribble as well are both very low down the priority list for county council, it appears. And I'd like to know why that's the case.
Yeah.
So maybe somebody who can answer that question would be quite useful to have in front of us as well.
Yeah, we can add that to, if we get some proper context as to, well, perhaps if we put a call out to all the parish and town councils regarding questions, and the borough council representative regarding questions that we want to put to county council from a highways perspective, and then it's not just a PowerPoint presentation on something that is irrelevant and actually is Chorley specific, because there's nothing worse than just listening to something that's broad brush, is it? You know, and that's I think that was the constructive criticism that we had from of Rupert when he came last time, because he was talking about stuff at a really Lancashire-wide level rather than actually what was going on in Chorley. Is that all right, Coral? Yeah, fab. And then item 5, we've got an item requested from Astley Village Parish Council. Is there anybody here from Astley Village Parish Council?
Yeah, Councillor Gillian Sharples has had to leave, so she sends her apologies. So hopefully I can do the item justice on behalf of the Parish Council. What they were looking for is that the Parish Council are very keen to support training and development of the parish councillors, and we're very impressed by the social prescribing briefing that was delivered, I think at the end of this meeting in January, and they wondered whether or not there was an opportunity to deliver training to all parish councils as kind of an addendum to this meeting, so people could join the meeting towards the end, and perhaps there could be some training delivered at each meeting, rather than rely on places like Lancashire to go to each parish council and deliver training on safeguarding and prevent. If it could be done just once through the Chorley Liaison, then councillors who were interested could log in and take part in that training at the end of each meeting. So that was their suggestion. Now, I've seen the response that isn't practical and it sets a precedent. But as we've just said on the last item, we're going to invite Lancashire to the next meeting anyway. So why couldn't somebody from Children's Services attend also and provide some training at the end of the meeting? I think that's the request.
Fair point. Do you want to respond to that, Jennifer?
Generally, from a council's point of view, all our staff do online training, and what I was suggesting is that we can provide the online training through Prevent and Safeguarding for your team to do it at their own leisure online when they're free and available. We tend not to do face-to-face training as much now. It's more online links that we send for Prevent and for Safeguarding. So that's the availability that we've got. We can send that information through, and your teams can train themselves through the online portal.
You could take that back to the parish council, and if you have any other
yeah, I can take that back. It'd be interesting to know what suite of online training is available then that parish councils could access. I don't know if that could be provided as an addendum to these minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I was going to say Jennifer and Coral would know everything off the top of the head. That would be more for like LALC and NALC and, you know, Lancashire Association of Local Councils. But they can certainly provide you with a list of all the online training resources in terms of the prevent work. So you've got sort of a toolkit, so to speak, to go back to the parish council with, and we can circulate that to all the other parish and town councils in Chorley as well. That's certainly a starting point. I've got Gordon coming in, yeah.
Just a point, Chair. Jennifer can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Margaret went to a drop-in centre about social prescribing this afternoon, because Margaret went as a cabinet member for health and wellbeing. I don't know whether anybody else attended, and I don't know how well it was advertised for parish councils, but I know Margaret was there.
Yeah, I think the gentleman's referring to, they came and did a presentation last time, so everybody's really clued up about it, I hope. And going out there advocating for how good it is. And obviously Astley Village Parish Council's doing just that, aren't you? So as a starting point, we'll get you a list of all the different resources that are out there that Jennifer and her team are aware of for the prevent work. And then I think if there are any other specific items that parish and town councils think of, we can, because there's a lot of the training that we do now as councillors is online as well, and other external agencies and things. So kind of as and when and what issues crop up, really. Thanks very much for that. Yeah, Alistair.
Just a thought, a lot of what we do now for member training is recorded, isn't it? And can be shared after the meetings we do online. So technically, and it depends on the subject obviously, but we already do some member training sessions that are open to parish councils as well, don't we? Particularly around planning and what have you, and licensing sometimes. We could maybe share more of those for the parish councils, and then again, that would give them the same training that borough councils are getting as well on certain subjects. That might be useful.
Yeah.
That'd be excellent.
Share that training. So everything we generally get is online. So we've got training, we've got access to training videos. So there's quite a lot of information.
And
I'm happy if people want to send me subject areas, we can try and see if we've got that availability. We can send videos and links to.
And some of it's quite specific to Chorley, and some of it's quite specific to what we do as councillors, so therefore it will be more to that appropriateness. It won't just be general health and safety training or prevent training, it'll be general, it'll be more specific.
And I think we get there's a lot of LGA booklets and stuff now as well, isn't there? So yeah, you'll be trained out in Astley Village. Okay, so we'll go on to item 6, item requested by Heapy Parish Council. There is a response, but basically it's early days to be able to give any specific information. I'm looking at Alan, but it's technically Gordon, is it, or Bob? Alan, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. No, I think it probably arose at the last planning committee meeting where in the Western parishes they had 3 applications for these planning in principle things in what the agents had described as grey belt. We sat going through the national MPPF and it's about as clear as mud. Fortuitously, the planning committee turned all 3 down, but it seems quite 2 of them were recommended for approval by the planning officers. So obviously there's a big degree of uncertainty as to what grey belt land is, because reading through some of the stuff, it appears that a farmer's field with a 5-bar gate on is grey belt. And it just needs some clarification, I think, if possible. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think as soon as they've got the clarification, they've said they'll do a proper briefing paper for, I think it'd be for everybody, because we'd all value to know. Alistair?
And just to add to that, it needs national clarification because the precedent and the legal precedents will be set across the country because it is a new policy effectively. I read with interest the reports at the planning committee, the recommendations which were all different, and the actual outcomes which were all different as well, or very similar, but then, you know, based on different recommendations. So I think there is it's a very grey area, to quote grey belt, yeah. So there isn't any clarity on it. In Chorley, I think under the classifications we assess it, is there isn't a lot of grey belt. What there is a lot of developers or people with land who are trying it as a route to get planning permission. So therefore we're aware of it, and I think parish councils as well can flag up where they think it's a try-on, for want of a better phrase, through a new route, because some of these sites have probably come forward before under different guises. So we're alive to it, we're asking the same questions. There is greater clarity coming out now through the LGA and through some of the specialist teams in Parliament, etc., who are looking into this in more detail. But I think it's going to take a long time to get that. In the meantime, if people have concerns about specific sites, raise them with ward councillors, with parish councillors, and with everybody, because we'll all be interested in those. And we had a bit of an inquest after that planning meeting the other day, because I was very interested to understand exactly the same things. And particularly, planning in principle is a complete and utter misnomer for me, because the planning in principle on one of those sites was at a road junction which had no means of access for whatever development was put there, in my view. So therefore, you can have planning in principle with no idea what the access is going to be. That's crackers, because how can you say yes to development without knowing where the roads are going to go? So the whole planning in principle concept to me is a problem, and therefore we need to be dealing with it in a consistent manner within the Borough Council as the planning authority, and the planning officers themselves are concerned by that. So I think that's a fair comment, Chair.
Yeah, Alan,
yeah. I mean, just to come back on that, I mean, it does seem quite, I don't know, almost unbelievable that county highways aren't consulted on that the type of application you're talking about. You mean the one on Southport Road, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And if you drive to Lydiate Lane, Southport Road, every morning, every night, it's absolute chocker. So if somebody's builds a house there, how are they going to get out of the drive? How are they going to get in the drive? There's no means of doing it. So planning in principle is not really, and it's very hard to turn it down because it's so vague. Because there's no detail.
Just bring Alan Whitaker in, he had a point to raise.
Thanks, Chair. I was present at the Planning Committee when the Planning Committee rejected the officer's recommendations. Point I want to make, it just shows the independence and importance of Planning Committee members who can challenge recommendations that are made by planners for whatever reason they make them. But it just shows the importance of the independence of Planning Committee members being able to take a decision like that and reject the crazy recommendations that were presented. Thank you.
Here, here. So you're okay with that? You take that back to Heapy. Fab. So we're going to item 7, questions from members of the liaison and the public. So there are 2 questions that were belatedly submitted after the Adlington Town Council meeting on Monday evening. So you won't have seen those, but they will be in the minutes, and the text for the questions will be in the minutes and when the responses are available as well. So the first one was a question regarding asking for support for town and parish councils in respect of moving their websites and emails to .gov.uk for compliance, security and GDPR privacy reasons. So I think that was a question to support from Chorley Council, but it was more to also to sound out if other parish and town councils have moved to .gov.uk, or either with their emails or the domain names as well, or because I think Adlington Town Council had been researching it and it seemed to cost a bomb. Stuart wants to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I think just to add to that, we discussed it at length recently, and we're fortunate to have quite a techie councillor with us who shared a lot of her insight into how this could be done, and we were just sort of lost at how smaller councils, parish councils, could deal with this transition to the let me get the wording right, this gov.uk website. So we were looking for guidance, that whilst we were fortunate to have a techie person who can help us, on behalf of other parish councils, who do we turn to?
Couple parish council.
Yeah, we'd done it at a couple 4 months ago, and it went really smoothly because we had the. I think perhaps need to defer to Councillor Deborah Platt, who assisted. No, she's not there.
Well, that's
it was the association that sent it, and it's absolutely marvellous, and was.
The thing is, there'll be a response provided from Chorley Council's perspective, but it's useful for Adlington Town Council to know, especially with Coppell only being next door, that you've gone through that process. Alan, yeah?
On behalf, yeah, as my wife's lackey and soon to be an even bigger lackey in a couple of years' time. I think one of the issues is there are still a lot of parish councils who are using things like BT Internet email addresses and things, which actually are the personal property of the clerks. So if the clerk goes, they've lost everything. And that's partly why they try to. But anybody who, when you do your annual return, if you read the JPEG guidance, last year it was recommending that everybody had a .co.uk address, and this time they're going to recommend that everybody has a .gov.uk. The theory being that if people are dealing with parish councils, they are expected to know that they're dealing with a branch of government. So I don't know about, I mean, if by, I'm not sure what support was required, whether it was financial support or how to do it. But there's plenty of website companies that know what they're doing. It's the cost to a lot of the smaller parishes, I think.
I think you've summed it up well. So can sound out Coppell Parish Council, can't we? And we'll see what response comes back from Chorley Borough as well. Russ, yeah.
Whittle Parish Council, we've just changed all our email addresses to .gov.uk as well. So it's Wendy McDonald, the chair for she's worth contacting. So it went really smoothly. We had a guy come in and sorted all our stuff out, and it seems to have gone. I don't know the cost of it, mind you, but the process was quite smooth.
There you go. Two. Did you have your hand up? Oh, fab. So we're all right with that for that question. And then the second question was a concern about the increasing number of HMO applications across the Chorley district. So, and what could be done in terms of planning permissions and regulation around licensing and so forth. So a response is going to be provided on that, isn't it? Unless there's anything that you want to add. No? Terry, yeah.
Sorry, just on a slightly different matter. I appreciate that our leader of our council has got an equity card for his performance on BBC website. But one of the key things I've been pushing for years and years and years, the mantra of this council seems to be, Chorley's a great place to come live and work. Well, there's one thing missing. Chorley is a great place to come live, work and play. And it's about time we push that aspect, not just recreation, but what is provided by the council and sports groups. What you don't realise is that 50% of our population play in the area. And it's about time we recognised it. I pushed this with Lancashire County Council, and they say, oh yes, you're right, but do nothing. Is it about time we were a proactive council and said, yes, great place to live, work and play. Now, I know Wheelton's the centre of the universe, and Evie's the second centre. We've got great countryside, we've got great facilities for outdoor activities, but haven't the rest of the parishes got that? Because if you have, it's about time we pushed it, and pushed it hard. So I'm proposing that in future, when our leader gets on the media circuit, he says Chorley's a great place to live, work and play.
I'll respond direct to that, Chair, because I do say live, work, play and visit and spend your money and all the things. So it's a lot of different words used in lots of different places, lots of different times. What gets reported, Terry, as you well know, can sometimes not be everything we say. We have got a new strapline though for Chorley, which is the best of Lancashire all in one place, to stop anybody going anywhere else at all. So the whole point is you can come to Chorley and do all of Lancashire here. So we do appreciate that, and as part of that, and you'll have seen perhaps some of the stuff you're talking about is and there was some speculation in the paper about Chorley being a place to go on holiday for 2 weeks with sun, sea, sand and all the rest of it. If you listen to Graham Live on Radio Lancashire, because we have a destination management plan which is about people coming to Chorley to do things and to visit Chorley, and most people do visit Chorley to do things, and you're right, it's about the play side of it, because an awful lot of people do walking, cycling, you know, taking part in activities and sports, etc., and pursuits, or just, you know, eating and drinking around the town centre. So we fully appreciate that, Terry, and I will remember the whole line next time.
That strapline, can we have it as a mantra written down?
We will indeed.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Any other questions of members of the liaison? Ian, yeah.
I saw in the local press that the planning committee have given planning permission for the development of the new police headquarters at Exton. Is that correct? Was there anything in the planning approval that said they had to provide a site in the Chorley town centre for access to the police?
They are doing. So we are accommodating the police in the bus station for 2 reasons. One is it's in the town centre. It's also in an area which has a lot of antisocial behaviour and has in the past. So it's good that the police will be based in that area. And it's also good for the police to be there as part of a gateway site where a lot of people are coming and going, and therefore they'll be highly visible, they'll be based out of there. They also use some of our offices around Market Walk as well. So So the whole point is that the police are actually where and you just saw the map about where crime's taking place there, as opposed to in a block over here where there isn't as much as there is around the bus station. So we are accommodating them, they're happy to be there, and that was jointly agreed with them when they originally said they were going to leave the town centre.
Fab, any other questions? No? Okay, and then we'll go on to item 8, items for future meetings. So we've got a list of items, if there's, which is at the back of your agenda pack. If there's anything that you think of before the next meeting or anything that's time constraint, just let Ruth or Coral know. Got In the Borough as well, always looking for articles for In the Borough, so if there's anything that comes up in that respect. Don't think there's anything else. Number 9, any urgent business? We've not got any urgent business, so we'll close the meeting. Thanks for coming. Thanks, everyone.